How's it going, YouTube? Welcome back to another video on the channel. Today, this is going to be a little bit of a conversation between you and I about the situation of branded Despia in the current format and the future of the deck. I think that after the recent 250th YCS series in London, LA, and Bogota, we were all generally just disappointed with the performance of branded in those tournaments. I think that one thing that was very prominent when we were going into the format was that Labyrinth, Kashtira, and branded were the decks to beat. Spright and Runick weren't so much on the radar anymore. Labyrinth and branded did perform really well at the very beginning of the format, but then two out of those three decks actually fell off a little bit. One of them is Labyrinth, the other is branded. What actually happened and why are we seeing such disappointing performance, low conversion rates, even though the deck was basically, by the numbers that we got from Konami, the second most represented decks in the room? Kashtira was obviously number one, branded was number two, and one thing that was very, very apparent was that a lot of people may have participated in the event with branded, but did not end up in the top cut. I think one of the YCSs had 3 out of top 64 or top 32. The other had like 2 branded decks. I don't really know about Bogota because we didn't get those numbers, but overall, very low conversion rates. And I think that was probably like the biggest talking points besides Kashtira making it to all finals and winning 2 of the 3. Where's branded? What happened? So we'll get to that in the video. We'll talk about what's happening with branded. But first of all, a quick rundown of what actually happened and went well for other decks and what needs to happen. We're about a month away from Cyberstorm Access, actually exactly a month away as I'm recording it right now. And Cyberstorm Access brings an additional wave of support to branded. So there's hope because things will change. Let me start off by saying that branded Despia on a regional and local level is a very good deck. If you are a good pilot with the deck, you know the deck well, and you can play it well, and you know your matchups, you will do well in a regional and local environment. YCSs are scarce. Most of us don't play in YCSs, and even though that's the competitive pinnacle of Yu-Gi-Oh!, it's not the day-to-day enjoyment that we get out of the deck. We enjoy playing the deck in whatever circumstance, and if you wanted to go to a YCS and wanted to win, branded might not always be the great choice. Hopefully it will be, and it can be, and it was for a little while, but keep that in mind as you're watching this video, because not all of us are YCS competitors, and not all of us play to win big tournaments. Based on a lot of comments that I get on my videos, is that people just love the deck with a burning passion. I don't think people feel the same way towards Labyrinth or Kashtira or Runick, but I know people are really passionate, so am I, about branded. This is why we keep playing it, enjoying it, and we're still happy because we're getting more support. The deck is still alive. So keep that in mind. Not everything is about YCS wins, but of course performance means that the deck is overall competitively less viable the bigger the tournament is. I go to locals and regionals. I do really well with my deck. I know a lot of players do too. If you look at regional tops, not YCS top, regional tops, from the last few months, the last format, you will see branded almost in every one of them. Means the deck is good. You can go to a tournament, play a deck you love, and do well and get rewarded for it. So let's jump back into like an overall rundown on what actually did happen in the YCS, and that was Kashtira pretty much dominating the entire format. We saw Kashtira with 40 to 50% representation in 2 out of the 3 YCSs. I don't have the numbers for Bogota, so I'm referring to London and LA. 40 to 50% representation, which is a lot. Second most represented was in fact branded. And you can see that Kashtira took a big portion of the tops while Branded took barely none. Kashtira is in all finals during that weekend, and it wins 2 out of the 3. The third one being Spright. And it means that we might get some sort of ban list for the upcoming national season, which is starting in about a month as well, alongside Cyberstorm Access, sort of. Will Kashtira get hit? Maybe. If it doesn't, format stays relatively the same because not a lot of decks are actually getting new support besides Branded, like existing decks. There are new strategies being introduced in Cyberstorm Access, mainly Mana Dome and Super Heavy Samurai, that are completely new decks that don't exist right now. Super Heavy Samurai might be an attachment to Spright because it has the synergy with Spright just because of, the ability to spam monsters. But the only existing deck that's getting actual support is Branded, and the support is, it's very good support. It's not like they did to Virtual World in Photon or in Cyberstorm Access. They have like one bad Xyz. So we saw Kashtira playing much more aggressively this tournament. We saw them not afraid of Nibiru because people were playing Kaijus. So they wanted to go for a wider board. I think that overall, we know Kashtira is not an extremely fun deck to play and to play against. I think it did show how strong it was, and it will need to be addressed in the next Forbidden Unlimited list. The big question is, when is that going to be? Because last national season, we got it about a week before nationals. It was end of May or beginning of June, something like that, which was like mid-national season. So one approach is to release it before national season, like right now, end of this week, beginning of next week, so that people can adjust. But the format is going to shift anyway with Cyberstorm Access, so it might change. We saw Spright dominating right after Kashtira. Spright and Runick mainly. Super resilient. Got a hit with Elf being banned, but might actually need another hit. My call was that Sprint needs to be banned, but it might be too much of a hit. There's a lot of variants now playing Spright. Spright is an incredibly strong engine, and it's a fun one as well. I like playing against Spright, and I like playing Spright myself. It's a really fun, healthy deck that doesn't do any shenanigans that are like unfun, unfair. Melfi package is back. Increases the versatility. Like, the deck is so versatile, you can put anything in it. You can put it in anything, and it just works. If Kashtira gets hit and Spright doesn't, Spright automatically becomes the best deck. Same thing with Runick. It's performing extremely well. It draws you an incredible amount of cards, which allows you to get access to floodgates, traps, spells, engine, and of course hand traps. With things like Naturia that can end on Naturia Beast, which is a hell of a card, or for hire that draws 6 cards per turn. It's insane. So Runick and Spright, in my opinion, Spright maybe can go unharmed, but Runick has to be hit in some way. And I think like Fountain and Tip might need to go to 1 for that to happen. Lastly, before we get to Branded, Trap Tricks and Labyrinth not converting well, not doing well. Labyrinth barely making any tops. I'm not even sure. I think there was like 1 top or a few, like a handful max. Labyrinth is falling off because people are prepared. The deck is reliant a lot of times on floodgates, and people are just ready. Maining Cosmic Cyclone is not like a weird thing right now, and people just know how to play against it. Mathmech profiting off of the fact that Bestials are no longer in the format and actually squeezing into the top cut. Access code super busted, Mathmech engine super busted, and overall, again, a deck that can run a lot of hand traps, has a strong engine, so Mathmech takes the place. Ash Blossom, most represented card in London. That could be a good reason why Branded was struggling, because people knew that Ashe is so good in generic, but it's explosive against Branded. So it automatically shuts it down. That could contribute. Things like Grave of the Super Ancient Organisms as well, which is good against Kashtira, but also hits Branded as hard, if not more. And a lot of people know how to counter Branded. The deck has been around for a year. It's gone through some evolutions, but it's basically the same. So people know the deck really well, and they know what to do against it because they've been playing against it for a year on and off. Branded is the subject of this video, and like what happened. So I think I talked through a lot of theories on why it did not convert well. I think that the reason why people chose it is, one, it's a fun deck. It's a fan favorite deck. People really, really like it, and it's super accessible. It's a year old, with Lubellion and Cartesia being relatively new. $100 you get them both. And so people already have the deck, super cheap. Everything is like dirt cheap. Everything reprinted to death. Pick up the deck and play. It's really strong. Even as a budget version, it's really strong. So a lot of people picked it up, but maybe they did not really know how to pilot it as well as the people who committed to decks as strong as Spright and Kashtira and Runick, which is a financial commitment, but also a learning curve because the deck is out for a shorter amount of time. So a lot of people went with Branded. It's thought to be strong, but it's easily counterable, and if people are prepared, it's the longest running deck out of all the top meta decks that has been in the format. Branded is a year old. Everything else is a lot younger in that terms. And it did not convert well to the top cut, which is, again, for some of the reasons, people are ready for it. Ashe was super represented, and the other decks are very strong and consistent and can put up a lot of pressure. Runick and Spright are tough matchups for Branded, and they were really prevalent and present in high numbers, so that is hard. Kashtira could be hard and could be easy, but again, sometimes it's a die roll. And the bottom line is that I think that even though people thought we were going to get a hit for Branded before Cyberstorm Access, which is, by the way, what happened in the OCG. OCG had Branded opening limited to 2, and the latest ban list before the release of Cyberstorm Access, without Branded being actually too oppressive at all. Like, Tearlaments has been ruling the OCG up until a couple of weeks ago. And Branded Fusion was preemptively hit to 1, limited to 1, before Cyberstorm Access released. Just because it's an insane card. A lot of people were talking about Branded Expulsion, Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. I think that because of those results, it might be a little bit out of the radar at this point, but I will not disregard a hit, even a preemptive hit, just to take care of Branded so it doesn't explode too much. In my opinion, a deck that loses to one Ash Blossom, just like straight up loses, right? You can play through it, but it's not the same. And that did not do well. Like, we have Kashtira, Spright, Runick. Those decks are like 3 different decks that did very, very well and are very strong. Brandon has another wave of support. Maybe they want to let it go for now. Kill it at the end if it does well. And if it doesn't, it's a fan favorite deck that sells. You might not need to hit it. So what is next? I think that one option is a ban list before national season to balance out Spright and Kashtira and allow other decks to compete in the nationals format. Cyberstorm Access comes out, some new decks gets a boost, and then Spright and Kosh get a bit of a hit, slap on the wrist, just to lower the consistency, and we can have a super balanced format. Because right now, as we saw, the format is very open, very fun, very exciting, a lot of decks, still very much dominated by one deck, to be honest. Kashtira is still very, very prevalent. And Kashtira might need to be taken off the throne at this point. Visas and friends, tier got taken down. It took a while. Kashtira might have some gas left in the tank. Spright has been prevalent for over 8 months. It might be time. Elf was a generic hit that hit Spright, but it was not a Spright hit. Sprint might need to go. Maybe we need to see some limits as well. And maybe it needs to be hit more significantly before Cyberstorm access to prevent things like Super Heavy Samurai and Spright, which is devastating, I gotta tell you, playing against it and playing the deck itself. It is a hell of a deck. It's a really, really insane deck. So this is like my thoughts post YCSs. The future of Branded a little bit. I'm always hopeful, and I've been hearing a lot of people in my friends group, people I know, people on Twitter, people on Discord, people on YouTube. Don't get discouraged. I mean, this is the deck we love to play. This is the deck I currently love to play. It might not be that way forever, and I also play other decks on the side, but overall, the deck is alive. It's doing really well. You take it to locals and regionals, you will do well if you know how to play the deck. And again, I'm super, super excited to see what the future holds for Branded and for this format, which I think is very polarizing. Some people miss tier format because it was so interactive, but some people just want to play their decks and not get obliterated. Because Branded was unplayable with Shufflers and Ishizu and tier. But now it's playable. Even if it's not topping in like super high percentages, it's very, very playable. So very looking forward to the next portion of the format, national season, and we'll be here and we'll talk about it. And yeah, I'm just excited to see Branded being played. This will not be forever, so take it in, enjoy it while it lasts, and let's give it a good run to the end with Cyberstorm access. Thank you so much for watching. No sponsorships, ads throughout the video. If you did make it to here and you did enjoy it, all I ask is a like and a subscribe. If you are new, leave a comment down below what you thought about this video. And of course, everything that I talked about, the YCS, Kashtira, Banlist, the future of Branded, Cyberstorm access. Are you excited as well? I'll see you in the next one. Peace.